Culhane.
Present.
Olson.
Here.
Stein.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
And Dargitz, Johnson, Kays, and Dolly are absent. We have a quorum.
Okay, the first, we make the announcement that if anybody would like to make a public comment, that they should advise you and they can come up later.
Yep.
The second item and then is to approve the agenda.
And then I'm going to make a couple amendments to the agenda. So I have an amended resolution 2018-25, and that was presented to you all. And then we are also going to strike the discussion of R2A single-family attached residential district front yard setbacks with the absence of Chairman Dolly, with that kind of being his torch. And that's all.
All right, I may have a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Favor? Say aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Let the record show that Mr. Kaiser just showed up, please.
Welcome.
Next item is the approval of the minutes from the June 21st, 2018 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item, rezone of 218 19th Street Southeast.
Okay, so this is a petition submitted by Dave and Les McElhaney for the property that is currently zoned PUD, which is a planned unit development. And as you were previously presented, they, when we brought the intent for what they planned on doing with this site, it was recommended that they just come forward with a rezone, as they were planning on doing multifamily residential uses with the property anyway. So that's what you're being presented with today. And as far as it meets everything with the R3 multifamily residential district, all of the requirements. And it is, as you can see on the map, there to the north there is R3, which would be the same zoning, which is directly or immediately adjacent. And then to the east there's county land. To the south there's ag land, which is the St. Mary's Cemetery. And then to the west across 19th Street there is R2A, which is single family attached residential, and then C3, which is highway commercial. And then as far as the amendment that I made to the agenda, and if you look on that resolution that I handed out, it added another condition that the City Plan Commission does hereby recommend to the City Council of the City of Watertown that it be rezoned and that the zoning be extended to the center line, but then also that no building permit shall be issued until a final plat of the above referenced property has been approved and recorded. And that is mainly to show pertinent easements. And they have a preliminary plat that they submitted.
So item 3 was the amended item on the...
Well, the resolution 2018-25 is that I passed out is the amended resolution. Here, I can pull it up. It's on your screen. What is? Okay, so this is the plat that we're working with for the property that we're focusing on rezoning today. And this plat will also be brought back to you all at the next Plan Commission meeting after. But I think that it's worth having the discussion of what we require on the plat. And that was I had talked with the developer and their agents about this fire access easement that was platted to the north on Willow Creek Village Edition and extending that down so that it would remain unobstructed for a secondary fire access. And then that they will be platting Lot 1 and Lot 2 as they're going to phase their development. And so then we just had very brief conversation about that they would extend an access easement to Lot 2. And then there was also conversation, since this property to the east is still in the county, not annexed, not platted, that we would extend an access easement all to the end of this property.
It's going to be a cemetery.
Right.
That's correct. Right now, that's the plan. But if it ever changed for any reason,
It's going to be a cemetery. It's a perpetual gift to the church. The purposes of a cemetery, so it's a cemetery.
So you don't think that we should extend that?
It's going to be a cemetery.
What about long-term planning, Todd? Sounds good. Okay. So, and that's not a discussion that we have to necessarily approve here. We'll relay that, and the developer and their agents are here. So we'll have those conversations, and then, like I said, the plat will be brought forward to you guys at the next Plan Commission meeting. And then, but as far as the rezoning, does anybody have any questions?
I think I was the one that brought it up at the last meeting. I think it's the more appropriate zoning designation than PUD in this situation. And I would make them, we're not in a public hearing yet.
No.
All right. Is there anybody here to speak on behalf or against this motion, or this rezone? Please, open the public hearing and please state your name.
Hi, I'm Pete Stencil with Stencil Group, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Our company started in 2009, and we built apartments in the Minnesota Twin City area, and then also around South Dakota. We currently finished a project in Aberdeen, South Dakota. It's a 72-unit building, and that's what we're looking at building here in your town. And I know we have some pictures, too, of what we did over there. I guess our plan is to do a phase 1 and also a phase 2, and the total amount of money that we'll spend on this project will probably end up being around that $13 to $14 million. I'm trying to think. Is there any questions from you guys, or?
You don't have any objections to the fire access on the east side?
I do not. Because we have spoken to, I have talked to our agent with the fire marshal, and we discussed doing a dry system in the building, and we're fine with that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Chip Ramus, Fire Marshal. We've discussed this, and we've talked about with the fire code. Under 200 units, you can allow one access into the area as long as the building's fully sprinkled. And I've talked to the developer about with apartment houses, they're a little different than what like say this building here. There's 100% coverage in the building. In apartment houses, it's not 100% coverage. There's attic areas and there's small rooms that aren't sprinkled. Well, with one way in, we're gonna go with 100% coverage in this building, so it's less likely to have a fire. So we're good with it.
I guess I right at the moment, I guess I can't think of anything. I assume, did you guys get this preliminary plat? Did you want me to bring this up to you, or you got it? Okay. So.
Anyone have any questions, comments? I'm sorry. Right. Thank you. We have other people that
Okay.
would like to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name.
My name is Gloria Young, and do I understand that it is 72 units in each of the two buildings, or a total of 72 units for the entire lot? Or we aren't certain? Each. Okay, then my concern would be the access in and out for neighbors and residents nearby, because we are 140 units on this lot. There is a luxury apartment behind where I live with 30+ apartments, and they're also building another luxury apartment with another 30+. So we are beginning to have a lot of traffic in our area. So it's going to be hard for all of us to get onto 19th during certain times of the day especially. So I ask you to consider the traffic flow. Has there been any thought given to adding another stoplight to allow for people to get in and out easily?
Currently, under the existing PUD designation, the PUD is only just a holding for a potential mixed use, or it could be this could come in under the PUD currently, correct, Brandy?
Yes.
And so the community as a whole, through the zoning process at a previous board, has determined that this is an area where higher density residential development is an allowable use. It has access to a collector street. It has all the base requirements, infrastructure to accommodate. Traffic is could potentially be an issue, but from a land use perspective, we're looking not at this particular development. It's only whether or not this piece of property is appropriate for mixed use. It could be a much smaller development. It could only maybe end up being a 72 unit. It's just whether or not this piece of ground is appropriate for mixed family, not this specific 144 unit development. Is that correct?
And on the engineering end, I would say that the main access points for these other apartments in the area are actually off of 2nd Avenue and Kent Place. And since they will not be contributing to those, they'll be contributing directly to 19th. Going forward, I would say at this time there's no plan for any stoplights or anything like that, but we would analyze that going forward to determine the traffic flow on 19th. I don't see right now a need for it, but that could be determined by traffic counts and studies later on.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, for the engineering, we don't see an extra 144 individual cars a day, half a dozen trips each a day. Is that going to cause any stacking problems at 19th Street?
I don't believe so. I think for the most part it's going to be staggered throughout the day. Most apartments are. And there is a turn lane on 19th that's going to help alleviate any stacking concerns. And I don't see any issues.
Actually, there could be more than 142 cars, because some of these units may likely have 2 cars to a unit. anyway, that was my concern, so please keep it in mind when you're making decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joy Nelson with Haugen Nelson Realty. And I just want to make one comment on the proposed landlocked property, to the east of here, the future cemetery. If you feel that it's really mandatory to have an access easement there, it just seems more plausible to go to the north through Willow Creek. It's a much shorter distance rather than, this lot is, 800 and some feet deep, Brandy? And I think the next phase in Willow Creek is currently being platted right now, and it's a much shorter distance. It doesn't seem to be the right way if you really do feel there needs to be an easement for that property back there. So.
Thank you. Would the easement be something that we would need to address
It's not
with the way that Joy presented it? We could do that at a later date, in addition to the easement that's been proposed now, right?
Right, well, and the easements at this point for the rezone don't matter, but just since they presented it and to keep the discussion happening, and then now we can have internal discussions, and then we'll bring the plat, but it's nice to have your input on where you're at with the easements. But for this particular motion or recommendation, the easements or plat that's presented doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Once we get to that plat discussion, though, I would recommend just a contact with Immaculate Conception Church, because they're the ones that own the property, just to reaffirm what I 99% sure believe, that it's going to be a cemetery.
Sounds good.
I'm planning on being there
Did you
someday.
buy a plot?
Not yet.
All right. Anyone else to speak at the public hearing? With respect to the concerns about the traffic flow, those are always issues that, any growing area, any new development, we take a look at it on a case-by-case basis, on an as-need basis. Certainly the street that's out there on 19th Street now with the turning lanes, and, when I was growing up, that was a gravel road. So, again, that just shows you, that the city will make accommodations as necessary, depending upon, the traffic flow, depending on whatever is developed there, for that matter. So that would be my comment with respect to the concerns about the traffic issue. Anyone else have any comments, questions?
Just that I think the proposed intended use of mixed family, higher density residential development has been identified in our land use plan in these areas that are in High Corridor, 19th Street, collector areas. These are the areas that we've picked, and that's the type of uses that we've been looking at as acting as a buffer from the intensive traffic on 19th Street. So I would support the resolution number 2018-25.
And as I understand it, the city staff is in favor of the rezoning as well.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have anything? If not, I'd be looking for a motion to approve resolution 2018-25 as amended.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item, discussion of ordinance regarding membership requirements of the Plan Commission.
Okay, and this one's pretty straightforward, but I'll let Matt talk about it.
Thanks, Brandy. Excuse my voice this afternoon. A little stuffed up here. This was basically, it was brought on by a member of the current Plan Commission, has moved or is in the process of moving roughly a mile outside of the city limits of Watertown. And he's a valued member of the Plan Commission. The mayor thought it might be not so bad of an idea to research whether or not we could have a member of the Plan Commission not live within the city limits of Watertown. And so my research revealed that other communities around the state do this. Rapid City being one. I believe Aberdeen has there is no real limit identified in their ordinance of where where they could live. State law, I believe, allows it. And so what we would bring forward is basically a change to the ordinance that would allow one member of the Plan Commission to live no more than 3 miles outside of the city limits of Watertown.
But it's not required that we have one. It's just
Correct. It would read that no less than 6 members of the Plan Commission live within the city limits, and it would allow up to 1 member live outside of the city limits, up to 3 miles.
I think this is an appropriate motion, being that we do have joint jurisdictional zoning, and periodically people that live outside of the city limits may feel that they would be less disenfranchised if there was a voice in that joint jurisdictional area representing them on the joint zoning board.
I would like to add another thought in there for you to consider, Sarah Karen Mayor. Currently, the Board of Adjustment has 2 alternates, and they come to the meetings, and then they step down when the Plan Commission takes effect. What if those alternates were actually on the Plan Commission as well? So that's another thing that we could add in to the ordinance for Plan Commission. Right now it says on the Board of Adjustment that the mayor, subject to the approval of the City Council, shall appoint 2 alternates to the Board of Adjustment.
Enabling legislation is specific to the alternates or Board of Adjustments. At least they are on the county side.
Right, but could we, or is it
I didn't hear what you-
prohibited to
I
do
didn't-
it
I just know on the county side, my working is that the enabling legislation is specific to the Board of Adjustment. And there is no specific enabling legislation to alternates to the Planning Commission, primarily because the Planning Commission is just a board of recommendation to the City Council. There's no requirement to have anything more than a simple majority of those present.
But is there anything prohibiting it? Because in Watertown, we're unique in that our Plan Commission is our Board of Adjustment,
Not
except
so-
for the alternates.
Most places it's that way.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Most places it's that way. Either the city council or the town board is acting with 2 or 3 hats, or if the appointed board is the Planning Commission, is also the Board of Adjustment. And so I'm just saying, I don't have a problem with it, but I'm just not sure the state law enabling legislation allows for it.
I would have to check on that.
Yeah, and I think there have been times where we really struggled, and you probably don't even know it, being on the Board of Adjustment or the Plan Commission, that whether or not there's going to be a quorum, and if we have a public hearing set up and then we hear from 2 people that they're not coming, and sometimes people don't tell the staff in advance that they're not coming, and we're making phone calls and trying to make a quorum. And so that's the reason for having alternates that can actually step in.
For a Planning Commission, though, you only need 4 to be here, and 4 is enough to have a quorum to take action, and only 3 votes to make a recommendation to the City Council. Our Board of Adjustment, we're locked into having 2/3 of those present and voting to move things
Well,
forward.
and clearly, the Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body. They have more power than the Plan Commission. But those people are here for the meetings, and they often stick around anyway. And at times when we're struggling to have a quorum, it would be beneficial if they've made it to the Board of Adjustment to create a quorum there. Then we don't have to call off the Plan Commission meeting either. It's just an idea that I'd like you to think about. If you don't think it's a good idea, don't put it in there.
So where you're going with that is you would like that to be written into this adjustment with one
Right.
person outside of the city limits.
It's another change to make to the Plan Commission.
Yeah, I would agree with that, frankly, because I went through that same process. I was like an alternate for a while, and then I'd sit up here, then I'd leave, and I'd come back. And it was just a very strange arrangement. And speaking for myself, I'm well aware that there are times when we struggle to get a quorum. In fact, we had the discussion, this afternoon, and we're kind of counting heads already to see if we had enough people here, and if we had people that were coming for the Board of Adjustment. Today was kind of an odd day since we didn't have a Board of Adjustments meeting, but the point is that if we had those folks that were the alternates on the Board of Adjustments could also be the alternates, if there is such a thing, on the Planning Commission, then I would be fine with that.
Couldn't, so we'll just amend it to say the Plan Commission shall consist of 9 members appointed by the mayor.
Well, no, it's
Subject to state law.
It's-
I'm in favor of it. I just don't know if you have the authority to do it.
Yeah, if we don't, obviously, we wouldn't do something we can't do by law, but if we could just mimic the language in the Board of Adjustment part of the ordinance, which is, you know, the next section, we're in 210201, talking about the Plan Commission, and then 210202 is the Board of Adjustment, and you are the same people.
Yeah, it seems to make sense. I think everybody would be
Yeah.
in favor of it if
If you can't
if we can do
come on Thursday, the 19th of July, 2018, to the Board of Adjustment, then you probably can't come to the Plan Commission meeting either. And if we're struggling to have a quorum for one, we will be struggling to have a quorum for both. So I personally have been making phone calls to alternates and people who haven't replied that they are coming, just to make sure we're going to have a quorum, and that would alleviate some of the pressure. So I don't mean to drag it out, just wanted to.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea, and if it's legal statewide, then
Yeah.
I think we'd be in favor of that. So.
It's a good time to add it because we would have brought it. We didn't have enough time for the public hearing to make this, to just bring it as an ordinance amendment. So it's good we have the discussion. Then we can add that to it too. And I think that more input, even if everybody like that's here is able to make it, if they want to sit in and give their input as well, I think that's beneficial.
All right, thank you.
So,
Maybe it would be just another way of looking at it is just saying that if you appoint a 9-member planning commission and you retain, and the 2 that are usually alternates to the planning commission are just alternates to the Board of Adjustment, and then they're here for planning commission actions, which is more the planning, the recommendation, and then you go, and the 2 can leave for the Board of Adjustment, and you can still use them as a backup. But if you feel that those individuals who show up and then they're just not participating as much in an official capacity, just make the planning commission a 9-member board, of which.
Right, I think 9 is kind of cumbersome, and it's.
But that's what we're asking for right here.
Alternates, and they.
Only on the planning commission issues. The Board of Adjustment would still stay at 7. That's what I'm trying.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
That's what you're saying, right? I think you guys are saying the same
I think
thing.
we're saying the same thing. You're saying that you want to just have alternates. You still only want a 7-member planning commission, and then just have the alternates there.
But the alternates for BOA show up and they still participate, but then if they don't need to vote, then they don't vote. But
Right.
No, the alternates to the BOA are only the 9 of us wouldn't sit up here. Only 7 is the BOA. The alternates would only be in the event that one of us can't vote because of a conflict of
And
interest
that
or we're
was
absent.
that was what I was proposing, is that we would have a 7-member plan commission with 2 alternates in case we couldn't make a quorum without.
I understand, but the thing is, you only need 4 to show up for planning commission actions. So you would have to have 3. If 3 of us were gone, the plan.
That has happened, where we've only had 3.
Yeah.
so just to have them, if they're here and they're alternates, then just to have it as an option written in our ordinance.
So they would be alternates to both
Right.
bodies.
Right.
That's all,
they'd
right?
have the same role on both bodies, so there'd be no
Right.
confusion.
So we're not talking 9-member boards then.
No. It's 2 7-member boards with 2 alternates, and if there ever were a case where we lacked a quorum, you have extra bodies to add to it. And I think, up to 7, if you've got 2 people gone, and you don't need the alternates, but they can serve and they can vote, and you still have 7 members participating. Sometimes that's helpful to have, not be down to the bare bones for making an action. Just a thought.
11.4.14 is your site to look at for BOA, where it's specific to alternates, but there is no complementary language regarding planning commission. So again, it depends on what the intent of the
Right.
legislature
And
was
if
at
it
that
says
time.
if it doesn't say you can't, then maybe you can.
Skipping item 6, number 7, discussion of rezoning property located along 4th Avenue Southwest from I-2 Heavy Industrial District to I-1 Light Industrial District.
Okay, so again, this is just discussion, and this area was brought up when we brought forward that ordinance amendment for allowing commercial recreational facilities within the I-1 light industrial zone and not the I-2. And then also, if you remember, we defined commercial recreational facilities as a recreational facility only to be used by, I don't know what we said, children 14 years of age or older, or I don't know, young adults. I don't know what we put in there, how we define that actually, but so it's 14 years of age, and or people, I don't know. But then, so the request came about if we were to rezone these properties to I-1 from I-2, where it's not allowed because the business that was kind of in question wants to relocate into this building here. So they wouldn't be allowed, they wouldn't be children under the age of 14 using the facility. They would be basically, they're asking to rezone it. I'm sorry I made that really confusing. The lots are also non-conforming to I-2 the way they are.
What are the existing uses on the property?
Well, this was Dakota Gold. I'm not sure what this is. Oh, that's DK Diesel.
So are those I-1 or I-2 type uses as by what the ordinance states? Are those allowable uses in an I-1 zone?
And then, so actually it was just these two properties that were asked about. I did say that if this property owner had conversation with these two property owners to the south, I mean, that just, and their use, and if their uses are compatible with the I-1 zone, that they should reach out and try to include them if they are going to petition to rezone. Just, make it even. Also, I-1 is more restrictive, so they would be upzoning, and then it's adjacent to R3. So the farther we can get away from I-2 in this area is, I think, of benefit.
Has anybody talked to the Development Corporation? We don't have much I-2 zone property in the city. And so I wouldn't want to be encouraging reducing land that we could be using for more intensive agricultural or industrial uses if the Development Corporation and those people that are out trying to land economic development projects. So I would be more comfortable finding out what those individuals would be thinking about as well.
Well, one thing to think about also is we have a I-2 zone right next to residential, which we don't care for the fact, like we've had discussions before, of what can be allowed in these areas, and throughout the history we have residential neighborhoods close to some of these businesses in a different area, and they're complaining about the noise, the dust, the corn stalks, or the shucks that come off the corn into their property, or dryer fans, and there's a better area for I-2, I feel. If there's other properties that the Development Corporation out in more of the industrial area zones would better fit.
I understand, and this used to be the Swift plant many years ago, and that's why it had the I-2 zoning on that property. For some of those businesses, would everything that's currently used out there fit the I-1 zoning designation?
Yeah.
Well, then why are we just spot zoning it? Why don't we just take the
Oh,
whole thing?
the ones that he's proposing.
No, I'm talking
sure
about the rest of those.
No, there's the metal plating company that is across the street,
So
which is I-2.
right, and so my point being is that some of these I-2 uses are going to continue being I-2 uses for the long term. So, and we know that the property on the R3 zone property on the north side may eventually not be R3 properties zoning, and long range use of that property as well could go away. I just think, this is something more than just a simple planning commission action. I think it's an economic development discussion that needs to be had.
And I won't speak for Watertown Development Company, but they do have industrial parks and they're shovel ready that are zoned appropriate.
Pull out your zoning map and take a look at how much I-2 zoning property that we have in the community, though. That's what you need to look at. And again, if they're fine with reducing the amount of acres of I-2 zoning in the community, I would be more than supportive of it.
Well, I question also that we as a board, how can we deny a property owner from changing what they want to use their property for?
We do it every day.
Change the zone.
We do it every day in zoning.
Adding zoning, but not,
So yeah, that's I-1 there.
We don't have, the only I-2 zoning that we have is that spot there, a little bit out by the airport industrial park. The other I-2 is drainage areas.
Your mic's off.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. There's not a lot of I-2 zoning in the community, and I just know that several years ago, we did conduct some analysis for the development corporation and the business that I work in, and that was one of the shortcomings that they said is we do not have enough I-2 zone property in the community to attract certain types of economic development activities. And so, again, I'm just deferring. If the Economic Development Corporation, Watertown Development Company, is comfortable in doing that, I would support it.
But don't you feel like in this situation that I-2 is kind of spot zoned in the middle of
The
town?
I-2 zone was there long before the I-1 that surrounds it.
Right. But if they want to rezone to a more restrictive zone in that place, I know that there's a need for I-2, but there is land that is zoned I-2 that's developable. And they could rezone as well.
The short answer is that's not true.
And
all the I-2 property that you're seeing up there, most of it is not developable property. It's just a holding ground where where you got lagoons.
And these are I-2 properties with buildings already there, so they're easily to move into. Whereas, yeah, it's great to have a lot that's shovel ready, but as you're looking at a business that's ready to come in now, if they look at a building that's already built that fits their needs, it's there for them.
Again, I think it's a great discussion. I just think we don't have all the right players here to talk about it and talk our way through it. And if we were to have those discussions, or staff wants to have those discussions outside of the Planning Commission and bring that back to us, I'd be more than glad to follow and support what you're proposing.
Okay. Sounds good.
Has anybody else got anything else to say?
No, I'm not in opposition at all, but I do think that the development company is a key player in this, and I think we need to circle them in before we go any farther.
I appreciate your comments. I wouldn't have had any idea of the lack of I-2 unless you'd brought it up.
So, good deal. I'll relay that. It was just a very I don't know. Like he doesn't have a petition ready or anything. It was just I wanted to run it by you guys and get your thoughts on it. So thank you.
Alrighty, moving along then. We've got the, anybody here to speak on the open public comment section? Doesn't look like it. Any new business?
None that I have.
Any old business?
Old business is it's Don's birthday.
Happy birthday, Don.
When will we be bringing up the temporary sign regulations that we postponed from last month?
So I'm having an independent sign consultant look through to make sure that we're all good on being content neutral. He thought that he'd be getting back to me shortly after the 4th, which it's already July 19th, although it feels like it was just the 4th. So, and then also, I know Ken had some additions that he wanted to make, just like more clerical things. And then I think that just so we can get everything taken care of at one time, we should almost have a billboard discussion.
I would rather us take on temporary signs and get that done. We've spent a lot of time. We've had people that's been wanting action on that since back in February. My recommendation would be that we move forward on the temporary signs, get that put to bed. Billboards is going to be a long, drawn-out discussion. It's not something that's going to happen in 6 weeks. That just comes from experience. 15 years ago, we spent 2 years on the deal. There was a committee that spent over a year, just 2.5 years ago, reviewing it. I don't think I would rather get something done and get it completed, knock it off the list, then let's jump into billboards if we need to. They're two different things, actually.
I would have to agree with that. And Brandy and I did have a brief discussion on that and earlier this afternoon about that. I would be concerned that we rush anything through with the billboard thing. And considering the fact that as far as our understanding, my understanding of the temporary signs, that one we are done with, you know. And rather than throwing something else in the mix and dragging it out further, making it more complex, and Todd's right, they are two completely separate animals. You could eat, you know, they're different approaches and different challenges and different issues and different different challenges with each one. So I would be in favor of completing the temporary sign recommendations, and then if we decide that we need to tackle the billboard thing, then do that as a separate item.
There's nothing saying that we can't start having discussions on billboard issues, and whoever the mayor wants to appoint to those subcommittees to address that and look at that, I think we can start having those discussions again if that's where we're going to go. But let's get some wins and get some of these other little low-hanging fruit taken care of first.
So yeah, then we can expect to see that on the August 9th Plan Commission meeting. So we'll bring the temporary signs and along with the ordinance amendment for the plan or the membership requirements for the Plan Commission.
I also know, talking just to one of my staff persons, and I know the mayor has asked some questions about the comprehensive land use plan, that I know Luke would like to start having formal reviews of that at the Planning Commission level in August and September. We figure 20 minutes as a part of every one of those meetings, with the onus being on the Planning Commission to start reading that 380-page document, and then Luke would be going over certain sections and asking if there's any questions of the board. Not reviewing it with the board, but just saying, okay, you read pages 1 through 45, any questions, comments, changes, and taking that over the course of maybe 2 months, and then being ready to then taking it to a public hearing process so that we can, again, get another win and get that project done.
Sounds good. So should we include that on August 9th, or I'll be in contact with Luke? Okay. Sounds good.
Any other old business? Do we need an executive session?
No.
Then can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. No. Second for a second. Second by Mr. Hanson. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.